Hello, everybody, and welcome to the FreeCodeCamp podcast. I'm Abbey, and today I'm chatting with Eleftheria Batsou, who is a front-end developer and UX and UI designer from Thessaloniki, Greece. Eleftheria is currently getting a master's degree. She is a prolific content creator on YouTube and other platforms, and she travels to and speaks at numerous conferences. So as you can see, she's a very busy lady. So let's hear some more about her journey into tech. Eleftheria, thank you so much for being here and welcome.
Oh, thank you very much for having me, and thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. I'm glad that we get to talk to you today. So let's start off by just learning a little bit more about you. Just tell us about yourself, where you grew up, where you went to school, and, kind of the path that got you towards or into tech.
Well, I grew up in Greece, and until I was like 13 years old, I was traveling a lot with my family due to my parents' job. But after that, I started living in Thessaloniki, and Thessaloniki is the second biggest city in Greece.
Mm-hmm.
So after that, I was always here in Thessaloniki, but when I was like 18 years old, it was time for me to go to the university. So it was a hard year because I had to study a lot. And at that time, at 18, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do something about coding, programming, and stuff like that, or if I wanted to take like, let's say, another road and maybe like maths and basics. But yeah, after a while, I thought, why not programming and coding? So yeah, that's it.
So was that, was there like an obvious programming track, like either in high school or at university? Or, I feel like, when I was growing up, and I'm a little older than you, so this is probably the difference, but, it wasn't just an obvious thing. So was that something that you had just heard about? Did you know people who, programmed? How did you decide to do that?
Well, to be honest, here in Greece, the system is that when you're 18, you're giving the final exams, and with these exams, you either go to a university or somewhere else. I wanted to go to a polytechnical university, which are like 5 years, and you get a lot of maths and a lot of physics. But my sister, which is like 2 years older than me, she was already in a polytechnical university, and she was doing maths, physics plus programming. So I thought that that would be really awesome for me as well. But the problem was that I gave the final exams and I didn't pass at first. So that was a fail. But the system back then, now it's not like that, but back then it was like if your brother or sister is in university and you want to go at the same university, you get some points. So although my final score wasn't good enough, I took some extra points from my sister, and that's how I got into this university. But at first, you have like a mix of different kind of courses, and for sure, you don't have enough things about programming and coding, so you really have to find your own way. I didn't have a lot of courses about coding, and most of them were for backend. It was like Java or PHP or things like that, and I didn't have almost at all HTML, CSS, or these basic things. So it took me a while to find out what I wanted. When I was at my third year, I had the opportunity to do an internship. And in this internship, I did it in my city, in Thessaloniki. And I didn't know what I wanted, but I got into a job that I had to create websites. So I started seeing things as a front-end developer. And it was only 6 months, but I really liked it. And after that, I started looking at things on my own and, started to dig into HTML, CSS, and JavaScript because at that job, we were more like frameworks like Joomla and things like that. So I wanted first to learn the basics, and then I could do whatever I wanted.
Wow. Okay. So did you learn the front end stuff kind of on the job in that internship? Did they help you learn that new tech, or did you have to learn on your own, or how did that work?
Most of the things I had to learn them on my own because there was like only some very, very, very basic things, but certainly they weren't enough. And one of the, one of the ways actually that I started learning and I got familiar with FreeCodeCamp was that I read an article in Medium, and in that article, someone suggested like a roadmap on how to be a front-end developer. So I thought,
Right.
why not just follow that roadmap and we will see. I think I was like 21 years old when I did that, and now I'm 25 to 26. So I
Mhm.
think I was at that age, so I had some time because I was still a student at the university. I wasn't in a hurry to find a job or something. So one of the first things that he suggested was to go through the free code camp curriculum and do like the first things that are for HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And
Mhm.
although that blog post was like, only do the first couple of things, I really like the structure and everything from FreeCodeCamp, so I started using it more and more. And I think that this is something that's really helped me to learn the things that I wanted. And after that, if I wanted something more advanced or something different, I could search somewhere else. But basically, this article helped me a lot because I learned like a lot of resources from where I can learn.
Yeah, that's so important. Sometimes it's just a little overwhelming, trying to comb through all of the stuff that's out there. So that's definitely helpful to find, a collection and a direction in one place. So that's really great that, you stumbled upon Free Code Camp and that you used it to learn and build. And I think a lot of people do that. They'll work through, the curriculum, but then, like you said, they'll go out and find supplementary resources or more advanced tutorials or things like that once they've learned the basics. So that's interesting. Okay, so you kind of you followed in your sister's footsteps a little bit, and got inspired to do the programming and the math and the science and that kind of track. And then, but so in addition to learning stuff at university, you are sort of self-taught in a way as
Yeah.
well because you had to learn these extra skills, right? So after that internship, what happened next? I mean, I know you said you weren't done with university yet. So how did you finish off? How did you get more into the front end? Tell us more about that.
Yeah, sure. I was still in my third year, so I had 2 more years to do. And the
Mm-hmm.
last year is only to do a diploma thesis, a thesis which is like a big project. And I did that, and it took me maybe a little bit more than a year. And after you do that, it's the time to graduate from the university. I mean, if you pass this final big project. But I thought that I wouldn't graduate it because I wanted to do a second internship. And this time I did the second internship in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam. And
Oh, wow.
at the time I knew that I wanted to do something with front end. So I started looking jobs that was specific about that. And I
Mm-hmm.
was lucky enough to find a really good company there. And I stayed only for 3 months, but I think it was enough because I knew I was sure at that time what I wanted to do with my life, and that was to be like a front end developer. So that thing really helped me. Although when I was at that period of my time, I knew that soon I wasn't going to be a student anymore. So it was time for me to start looking for real jobs because I knew that
Mm-hmm.
my internship wouldn't continue. So I couldn't work there. I could only internship. So
Mm-hmm.
that's how I started doing these challenges like 100 days of code. So when I was in the Netherlands, I read an article, and it was written by Alex Calloway, the creator of 100 Days of Code Challenge.
Right. Yeah.
And he suggested that if you want to get better, if you want to be better at coding, but in general as well, if you want to make coding a habit, then you should do this challenge. And at first I thought about it, but then I saw that it can only have some advantages for me. So I said, heck yeah, let's do that. And after that time, I started coding every day, and I started uploading things on GitHub, on CodePen, and also in Twitter. Like I use Twitter a lot, but before this challenge, I was barely using it.
That's great that it kind of got you, a little bit more connected on social media and kind of opened up that world because, it's so great to see all the support, for everybody doing 100 days of code. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, I was actually going to ask you about, I know you've really enjoyed, or at least you've done quite a few of these types of challenges. So, you must enjoy them and get a lot out of them. So, did you primarily, use them, or do you primarily use them just as a way to kind of level up your skills, or give you motivation to finish a project, or like what why do you do all those challenges, and which ones have you done?
Yeah. So I think that I do them because I want to learn more things and I like to be on track. So I think that it's working better if you say that I'm going to code every day, at least if it's just like for a few minutes, like 20 minutes or 1 hour, rather than saying like I will do all those things in a weekend. So
Mm-hmm.
those kind of challenges help me and give me a structure of the things that I want to do or I want to learn. I think that's why I do them. And yeah, I've done quite a lot of them, like 100 days of code. Now I'm doing the daily UI, but I've also done the daily CSS images, 30 days, 30 sites, 301 days of code. But
Wow.
that one, it was for, yeah, 300 days. It wasn't only coding, it was also like reading and studying. So yeah, I don't remember. Maybe I forget something else, but that's the basics, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I think it's a really good way to, like you said, kind of give yourself structure and, a program you can follow. And, it sounds like it's a really helpful way to learn something and to kind of dive in. So that's awesome. So that's interesting that when you were in university, that you decided to, kind of take a little extra time and, do another internship. It sounds like that's maybe not typical. But so I was just curious about the project, like the thesis that you did. What did you do your thesis on? What was the topic?
It wasn't something with front end development because at that time my university wasn't offering projects like that because the university or the professor has to have like a theme and if you like it then you can take it, but at that time no one had something with front end things. So my project was about a turbo machinery, and we had to take me and a colleague and another guy. We were a team. We were doing this project together. So it was a turbo machinery, and from that we were taking some measures, and we were using a Raspberry Pi and Python to and some sensors. So we were connecting the sensors to this turbo machinery, and then like we were getting measures and stuff like that, and the other person that wanted this project was wanted to have them from distance, so we also had to connect all those things like uh, without cables and stuff.
Hmm.
And I think that the final project was really good because after some time a Greek magazine also asked us to publish that project, so I was really
Oh, how
happy.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. What a great project. It sounds like it was kind of hands-on, but you got to sort of play around
Yeah,
with,
it was.
different tech, and yeah. So it's interesting because took a little extra time to do that, the second internship. But then I presume, after that you finished up school. So tell me the rest of the story of university and finishing up. And then what did you do next? Did you go straight into your master's program? Did you work a little? What happened there?
After that, I came back to Greece, and I was still doing like these challenges. And apart from that, I started looking for jobs. I had some interviews. Some of them were okay, some not so good because they were asking too many technical things, and I wasn't able to find like a lot of entry jobs because that's what I wanted. So
Uh-huh.
I kept pushing myself in order to learn more and get those technical things. And finally, I did an interview and everything was okay. But that also was for only 6 months. So they told me that I would have a contract for those 6 months because they had a job for only that time. I worked for 6 months there, and as soon as I finished, I started doing my master's. And yeah, pretty much that's how I started doing my master's. But while I was at that job, I started learning about AngularJS and also D3JS, which were two things that I haven't touched before alone. So that was great because again, I took some knowledges, and that's really important for me to always gain more things and not just be on the things that you already know.
Yeah, definitely. That's great that you have the desire and the will to keep learning and always keep growing your skills. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
So did you learn Angular and Angular JS and you said it was D3? Did you learn those again while on that in that job, or did you kind of learn those on the side just because you were interested, or how'd that work?
I started learning them at my job, but it wasn't enough. And at that job, I actually didn't have a team, so I was kind of all alone. And it was difficult because I was a newbie and I didn't have anyone to ask for help.
Mm,
And yeah, so I think that that was one of the reasons that even if that company was asking me to stay for more, I don't think that I would say yes, I want to stay here, because I wasn't in a team. And at that time, but still today, I think it's really important for a young developer to be in a team because it's a nice way to learn things like quickly and easily. So to answer your question, I was learning some things at work, but most of the things back home.
hmm. So you were again sort of teaching yourself quite a bit. It sounds like.
Yeah.
So what were you using to learn them? Where did you just find tutorials online? Were you taking online courses, or how are you learning those that tech?
For some of the things, like I was taking some online courses, I was using Udemy, like FreeCodeCamp that has some stuff about D3GS, and I think that's how I started learning them.
Hmm. Okay, so you definitely seem to be an effective self learner or self teacher. So that's a great skill to have. Okay, so were kind of dabbling in these technologies and learning more about them. And then, why'd you decide to go back to school? Did you just want to, I mean, so first tell us why you decided to go back to school, and then tell us a little bit about your master's program and what you're working on.
Yeah, sure. So, because at the university we were only doing stuff like maths, physics, and programming, but as a front end developer, I saw that this isn't enough because as a front end developer, you do all those things that the front end developers do, but also sometimes you have to do things with designing. And if a company is small and doesn't have a designer, then sometimes the front end developers also have to do that job. And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think that I had the skills to design something, and I knew that I had to learn it. I always liked designing, but I hadn't like an opportunity to learn it. So after I graduated from the university, I thought that I could take this master's, which was about designing. And now that I'm doing it, I'm really enjoying it, and I see that I learn quite a few things that I can apply then to my work, and this is very satisfactory for me.
I bet it is. I mean, to add that to your skill set, and like you said, I mean, if you're going to be working on the front end, it's really nice to be able to make it pretty and in addition to functional, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, I totally get that. So, how far along are you in your program?
Um, I'm like before the middle. I have a lot of things to learn, but because I'm doing it like part time, and the full is 3 years. But as a part-time, maybe it will take me 4 years. I don't know, we will see, because I'm thinking maybe the next year I will take more courses or will be like a full-time, but I'm not yet really sure. We will see.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting that you can do it part time, so that you can still kind of do other things and like travel to conferences and work and things like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's great to be able to do that. So what are you currently studying and learning about? Like, what's something that you're excited about that you're working on right now?
Oh, well, at that time, I'm actually working as a front end developer and app developer. So at my work currently, we are using Angular JS, and like as I've already mentioned, I was using Angular JS at my first job. So
Hmm.
now I'm still trying to learn things even better, and you know not just being a junior developer, but trying to be like a more senior one and sometimes mentoring other junior developers. So one of the things that I'm trying to do this at this time is to be more independent, because as I've also said earlier, I like being in a team, and I think it's very important for juniors or newbies. But as time passes, I wanted to feel like more independent, so I'm trying to polish my skills and be better at Angular JS. And that's also one of the reasons that I'm doing the daily UI challenge, and I'm doing it by like combining two things. One of it is designing, because my master's is focused on the design part, but from the
Hmm.
other hand, I'm also using Angular JS to develop my things. So I can do two things at a time for two different things, for coding and designing. So that's one of my goals at this time.
Excellent. That's an effective way to both learn and be productive and do your work. So, it's a good strategy, I think. So you said you're an app developer, or you work on apps right now. Do you work on any particular types of apps, or just kind of any sort of thing, or like what do you can you tell us a little bit about like an app that you've just worked on, or
Yeah,
one that you're
yeah.
working on now, or yeah.
In my company, actually, there is a company in Germany, but they also have some developers here in Greece. And
Hmm.
I am one of those developers. So we have an app. It's called Wege gesucht. It is a German name, and it's like Airbnb, but they
Oh, cool.
mostly use it in Germany. So my team and I are working on that app.
Very cool. Okay, so you have sort of one project and one app that you work
Yeah.
on, and I assume are you more on the design side of the app, or what exactly what do you do with that?
I think that I'm doing most front end kind of things, because we
Hmm.
already have a designer. But
Okay.
sometimes as a team, we are of course discussing things and stuff. And like I want to have an opinion, and that opinion to that I can like have this opinion with documents. So I can say that I think this is right because I've seen that here, or here I read about it, or something like that. So that's how my masters also helped me, because I can take this knowledge and then apply it to my work.
Yeah, that sounds really helpful. It's good that you can, again, kind of have that intersection between the two. The master's helps you with work, and work helps you with the master's. So, it sounds
Yeah,
like that's a
exactly.
pretty good setup. Um, So I was just wanted to go back to something you said a minute ago when you were talking about where you are in your program now. So like you said, you've learned a bit more. You're not quite a newbie anymore. Kind of working your way up towards being a more advanced or senior developer. And you were saying you try to help other, I guess, less experienced
Yeah.
students or people, and you sort of did a little bit of mentoring with them, which is really fantastic. But it made me think about your mentors. So do you have like currently have a mentor or multiple mentors, or do you have those relationships right now?
I at work I do have like a sort of mentor. I have some colleagues that are like mentors to me because they are really helping me, and they started helping me from day one that I was at that work. I'm really grateful for those people, and someday I really want to be at their level. Those are my mentors, but apart from that, I have a lot of people in my life that they are inspiring me to be like a better person and be a better developer. I don't think that you always have to have like a mentor that it's in in the same field as you are. Sometimes I
Hmm.
believe that like simple people that are in a different field can help you, or they can give you advices that you haven't thought, because as a developers we maybe think in a certain way, and maybe we are very like structured or something. Maybe we are not very open-minded and we have used things in a certain way, but then another person from another field, maybe he or she can help you be better and be more open-minded. So that's why I like interacting with a lot of people, because I can get a lot of ideas. Whereas if I'm only interacting with developers, then I believe that I will be like quite close, or my thoughts would be quite narrow.
Yeah, I think that's an important perspective to have. I totally agree that having, mentors or just people you can look up to or people who inspire you in any field, you can always learn something from them and probably find a way to apply it to what you do. So I think that's great that you do that and you find inspiration from all different kinds of places. So that's wonderful. So speaking of meeting different people in different fields and things like that, I know you attend and speak at a lot of conferences, like I mentioned in my little intro. So you just got back from a conference in Germany, right? So tell us about that experience. How'd the conference go? And I think you spoke at it, right?
Yeah, I did work there. It was really awesome, and I liked both the conference and, of course, the Germany, that it was my first time visiting it.
Mm-hmm.
When I go to conferences, one of the things that I really appreciated is when they are on time. And at this conference, they were on time, and everyone was on time. The organization was really good, and the volunteers were amazing. So I'm really grateful that I had the opportunity to go there. I spoke about D3GS, and it was my first time speaking about that thing. So I was a bit nervous at first, but like thankfully everything was okay. I also met a lot of people, and again, they were from different countries, different nationalities. Some of them were backend developers, some were the front end developers. So it was nice meeting up and catching up with everyone.
Yeah, what a great experience. And so what was the conference? I realized I forgot to ask, what it actually
The
was.
main theme was about Python, but except
Okay.
of Python, they had like other fields, and yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay. So yeah, that sounds like a really good experience. I'm glad your talk went well. Congratulations. That's always, yeah, I know it can be a little nerve wracking doing something for the first time or talking about something for the first time, but I'm glad that went well. That's cool. So you have another conference I think coming up in Poland. Is that correct? Um,
Yeah, that's correct.
that's exciting. And so you go to a lot of these things and you speak at a lot of them. So how do you prepare for that? Well, first of all, how do you decide which conferences to go to, and how do you sort of apply to have a talk there? Do you get asked to speak? What's that process like?
Um, I will go one step back from the question that you asked me, and I
Yeah,
will say how I started with the conferences.
sure.
When I did the 100 Days of Code challenge, after that, I wrote an article and I published it on Medium. And in that article, I was like describing why this challenge have helped me a lot, and I was encouraging other people to also take part in this challenge.
Hmm.
So I think it was like 2 months after I published that blog post that someone emailed me, and said that, I liked your article and I have a conference. It's in Denmark. And he asked me if I wanted to take part in it.
Oh,
At
cool.
first, I thought that he was kidding or he was joking or something like that. Yeah. My next question was something like, I'm not sure if I can financially do something like that. He offered to help me because the conference had some sponsorship, so it was okay for him.
That's great.
Yeah. After that, I learned that most of the conferences have sponsors, so it's not weird thing like to give some to have some funds for traveling and accommodation and stuff like that.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That's how I started speaking at conferences. After that conference, it was amazing. It was actually Code Garden at Odense in Denmark. And they also had another conference in the Netherlands. So they asked me again if I wanted to go there, and I said, yeah, why not? And I really liked the Netherlands because it was from the time that I was in internship, I really wanted to go back there. So I also went there. And when I was there, I met a lot of amazing people and a lot of amazing speakers. And as I was interacting with them, I also asked them, like, how did you start and how do you apply for conferences and how do you fund them? And they gave me some really good advices on how I can start on my own, because before that I was waiting for other people to invite me. But now I thought it was my time to do something and to have some action in order to find on my own the conferences that I wanted to talk to.
Mm-hmm. So what did they tell you? What was that advice? Like, so what did you start doing?
They gave me some sites and some websites that I could search for conferences. And like the other advices was to be clear on the thing that I wanted to talk and to be very persistent. Like apply to a lot of conferences, because for some people you will be okay, but some other people won't like you.
Mm-hmm.
So, or sometimes your schedule may be changed out of the blue, so you won't be able to go to that conference.
Right.
So one of the first things that they told me was to just apply in a lot of conferences, because you never know what will happen next.
Right.
And I started applying in quite a few conferences, and still today some of those conferences and some of those people like me and they invite me, but some people like don't like, I guess, the things that I want to say, or like maybe the conferences aren't in my style, or like I usually like to talk about JavaScript and the things that a developer can do. So not all conferences are about those two topics, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I guess that's how I started.
Oh, that's great. What a good sort of a fortuitous opportunity that, the person read your article and invited you to go to that first conference, because it sounds like it started off a really great,
Yeah.
pattern of attending and speaking at conferences for you. So yeah, that's really cool. So the one coming up in Poland, what's the conference and what will you be speaking about? Like just a quick sketch.
Yeah, I will be speaking about time management, but time management as a developer. So it will be something like how to be a better developer by managing your time, not only at work, but also when you're back home. And like things like I'm currently doing that, I'm working, but also I'm doing a master. So, and I'm also freelancing and I'm also having a YouTube channel. And I also want to have some time for friends and family. So my talk would be something like that, like finding the time to do everything you want to do.
That's definitely an important skill to have as a developer, or, really just as a person. Like you said, I'd like to hang out with friends and family occasionally. And yes, that's important as well. So that's great. So this is really cool, just hearing about these different topics that you're speaking about. And I was browsing through your website and kind of looking through your Twitter and seeing, these different posts that you do and blogs and YouTube videos. And I was really impressed by the breadth and sort of the wide scope of the things that you talk and write about. So I know you just mentioned your YouTube channel, and
Mhm.
I've been itching to ask you more about it because I know this is something that you're really excited about, or at least I think it's really cool. So you do a lot of videos on YouTube and things like that. So tell us a little bit more about how you got started making those videos. Why you decided to get into making videos and putting them on YouTube. Just tell us more about your YouTube work.
Yeah, sure. So, because I like to work with front end stuff, sometimes I don't like the result, but there are also sometimes that I do like the things that I'm creating. And I also believe that when you know something, even if it's something like really small and tiny, it's really good to share it with others because maybe some other person from the globe like don't know about it. So I tried to combine those two things, like creating front end stuff and then recording them, uploading them on YouTube. And maybe there is another person that doesn't know about those kind of things, and maybe he could look up to them. When I started, I think it was around 1.5 years ago. I'm not very sure about that. I
Mm-hmm.
was really creating very, very small things, only like HTML and CSS. But of course, there are people that are trying to learn these two skills, and maybe my videos are helpful for them. And I know that there are some things that I have searched a lot and I couldn't find good resources, or sometimes it was something very small and very tiny, but I didn't knew about it and I wanted to learn it. So I'm trying with those videos that if even if it's something very small, I have in my mind that maybe there is another person that don't know about it. So why not share it with that person? And that's how I started with my YouTube channel. Currently, I am uploading some things about AngularJS and daily UI, but before that, I was also creating some videos for FreeCodeCamp because I was doing all those little challenges that I really enjoyed them, and I saw that some people were like they didn't know some things. So I thought again, why not like create some walkthroughs of the things that I'm currently doing in FreeCodeCamp, and I saw that some people again like those kind of videos, and they asked me to do more and more. I did also some videos again for FreeCodeCamp that um, like they had the opportunity to be featured in FreeCodeCamp YouTube channel, and it was like really a big moment for me that my videos were on a big like channel. And after that, it was also really great because like Quincy Larson invited me like to Ireland for the top contributors party. It was yeah,
Right.
an amazing moment because like I met him, and of course I met all the other great developers and the other great contributors. It was like a really exciting moment for me. But yeah, like I don't want only to do videos about coding because yes, okay, I do like that, but I also want to share other things like designing stuff. And I have in my mind a lot of things that I want to record that are about designing, and some like designing principles that developers should know or should be familiar with. And then there is also a third part that I'm working on it, and I already have some videos on my channel. It's about soft skills that developers should have. I think that this is
Mm-hmm.
something really important.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I'm doing with my YouTube channel. I know that it's very small, but I'm trying to get it bigger and like more people to get to know it because I have like I believe that I have a lot of things to offer and share. So I hope that in the future it will go like better.
Well, and I think I love your philosophy of, like you said, you might, these little concepts might be small, they might just be a little tutorial, it might be but someone is probably struggling with it, or many people are probably struggling with it. So I think that's great to share, your process and your interpretation of the problem and the solution. So I, definitely encourage you to keep doing what you're doing, because anything that you can offer the community. And I'm so glad that you're sharing things on the FreeCodeCamp channel, and that you're creating so much content, because you're definitely helping people out there who have the same problems, the same questions that you do, and your perspective will offer them something they didn't have before. So I think that's really wonderful that you see it that way. So let's see. So just for our listeners who want to, subscribe to your YouTube channel, or, learn more about what you're doing, I'm assuming that the channel is just under your name.
Yeah, it's my first and last name.
Okay, and that'll be spelled out for those people who don't know Greek and don't know Greek spellings. It'll be spelled out obviously in the podcast and the show notes and stuff, so you can go find Eleftheria's growing, exciting YouTube channel and give it a listen and learn about a whole bunch of interesting topics. So that's fantastic. We'll definitely add that in the show notes. Okay, and so I think in addition to your channel, you also have a blog on your site, right? Where you again write about all kinds of different topics. Do you are your blog posts kind of related to some of the stuff you talk about in your on your YouTube videos, or are those different things, or what's the blog about?
They're usually like a mix of the things that you mentioned. Like I usually do a video and then I try to write something about it, but sometimes like vice versa. But in most of the times, those two things are connected. If there is something that I cannot like have a video, then I will only write a blog, or if it's something that it's not very important to have it written, then I will only shoot it. And I try to publish as much as possible, because you never know from where you will get the next reader or the next subscriber. So sometimes I try to have YouTube, my blog. I write stuff on Medium. Sometimes I even use CodePen that has posts. Every time I try also to have them in my Twitter, to tweet about them. That's how I try to promote them. Weirdly enough, I don't have a Facebook page, so I don't promote stuff there. But I try to use Twitter a lot because I like it more.
Yeah, I think a lot of developers and people in tech, are really much more into Twitter than other social media. And so I think that's a great place for you to be, because I think the developer community on Twitter is, really active and generally, quite supportive and positive. So yeah, I think that's a good strategy there for sure. So we've been talking about all this stuff that you're doing, conferences and master's program. And, again, you have a very busy life. So how do you sort of achieve balance in your life? Like, what do you do so you're going to be giving a talk about, time management and things. I don't want to spoil the talk, but just in general in your life, what do you do to achieve that balance and manage your time and kind of, keep everything together?
I try to be very organized, and I always have some little notes or to do list, sorry. And I work, so it takes me like 8 or 9 hours per day only doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But after that, as you mentioned, I need to have some balance in my life. So the things that I like to do is go out with friends, of course, but that's, to be realistically, like that's not something that I do in a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
But I try to go every day at the gym. Luckily enough, it's very close to my home, to the place that I live. So I try to go there, at least for 1 hour. It helps me to clear my mind, mm-hmm. and of course, like work out and stuff. And I binge watch YouTube videos, so that's something that relaxes me a lot.
We all have our things,
But most of the times, like, that's how I spend my day, just some gym and then some study at home, and if I'm lucky enough, like I have some free time to go for a coffee or something with my friends.
Mm-hmm. The Greeks love their coffee, man. I remember when I've spent time there, going for a coffee is definitely a
I
popular
do love it.
popular activity. That's great. Um, I think when I was browsing through either your Twitter or maybe one of your blog posts, I can't remember. I think you said you had discovered Headspace recently, right? Have you, started getting a little bit more into things like
Yeah.
meditation, or do you still use that? Or
Yeah. Well, I first started using it. It was like two. No, it was by the time that I got my first job,
mm-hmm,
and because at that job I was very stressed and nervous.
mm-hmm,
Sometimes like I wasn't feeling very good. So before I go to work, so every morning I was using that app, the Headspace app, and I saw that it
mm-hmm,
was really helping me, and like my mind was more focused and more clear after that. And after the time, because like after that I didn't have a job, so I was feeling more relaxed. I stopped using the app for a while, but like some months ago, because again I was very stressed with all the conferences, the new job and some traveling and my masters and some projects and some freelancing, so I had a lot of things to do. Like again I started feeling the pressure and the nerves and all those kind of things.
mm-hmm.
So I started again using the app, and I'm still using it. I think that it's like a really good app, and I would like recommend it to everyone that sometimes like it doesn't feel very well. I think that the app can help on those kind of fields.
Yeah, that's great to have something that you can just kind of, take a moment for yourself and kind of recenter, refocus. So that, yeah, that's great. That's good that
Yeah,
you.
it's exactly like that, that you take something and you do something for yourself, because like every time and every day we're trying to give things to other people, but sometimes we forgot about ourselves.
Mhm.
So I think that this app focuses more on yourself and myself, so that's why I like it.
Yeah, that's important. Absolutely. Self care is something that I know people are talking more about these days, which is good. So it sounds like you find those moments for self care between that and the gym, and yeah, that's really great. So
Yeah.
I know you said you like to go out with friends, go out for a coffee, things like that for fun, but I think you really enjoy traveling as well, right?
Yeah, for sure. Like as I have mentioned, traveling is one of the best things that I would recommend everyone to do it. And Greece is a small country, and like you cannot have everything here. So I really like to travel and see new things and have like new adventures and stuff like that. I really like it.
Do you have any sort of recent favorite places or favorite travel experiences?
Um, I don't think I have like something favorite, but I like the Netherlands.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's because it's the place where everything started for me. Maybe that's why I like it so much. But also, it's a nice destination, and I can see a lot of different kind of things. For example, um, me as a designer and not as a programmer, I really liked it there because they had like a lot of museums
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of great artists, like both modern and like the old one. So I really liked there because I could see a lot of things about art that I cannot see it here in Greece.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely part of the fun of traveling for me is being able to, yeah, go to those different museums or, see those different things I might have learned about in school. It's like, oh, there it is in person. Or, that's,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, it's so much fun. That's wonderful. I do think travel is really important, and I'm a little bit jealous of you. Well, first of all, I'm just jealous of you living in Greece because I love Greece. But second of all, I'm just you being over there in a couple hours, you can get to another country. So that's pretty cool to have that right at your fingertips and be able to go to those conferences and travel like that. So that's wonderful. So you are very busy, and I don't know how you would have time to do other things, but is there like a local, little community or tech scene in Thessaloniki that you participate in some way? Do you go to, meetups? Is there anything like that? Do you have time for that sort of thing? Or are you just completely, busy
um,
with all of your other work and school and things?
To be honest, I don't go to a lot of conferences or meetups here, but one of the reasons that I don't go is because there are not a lot of them here.
Oh,
And
okay.
that's quite sad, I guess. But there are some things about designing stuff, and it was actually like a design week for developers and architectures, like I think 1 month ago, that I had the opportunity to attend to some like speaking events there. It was really nice,
That's
but
cool.
I don't think that I do like a lot of those things.
Yeah, well, like I mean, again, you're busy enough. You go to enough other conferences and things like that. That that's not totally makes sense and is understandable. But yeah, I was a little curious about the tech scene in Thessaloniki. It sounds like it's still maybe developing, and maybe it's not quite as involved as some other places. But
Yeah.
you go to Germany or go to Poland and go to conferences there. So that's great. So we've kind of touched on this a little bit, and you've sort of mentioned, being a developer, being a designer, things like that. But I remember reading in one of your tweets or something that, or no, I think it was on your website, that you're very interested in kind of how developers and designers can better communicate and can work better together. Can you talk a little bit about, why you think that's important, and just ideas you might have on how developers and designers can kind of work more effectively together?
Yeah, sure. One of the problems that I see that the front end developers have, it's like they cannot communicate very well with the designers. And from the other hand, the designers also have the same problem with the developer. This, for me, these two things are very different, but they should be somehow combined. And these two teams, let's say, should communicate like all the time, because maybe the designer has something in his mind, but the developer cannot do it. Or like maybe the developer knows some things that the designer don't know. So they can help each other a lot. And one of the reasons that I decided to took that master is because I think that there is a gap between these two kind of different teams,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to eliminate that gap as I can. And that's why I try to do something. I try to be something in between, like sometimes offering my knowledge as a designer and sometimes offering my knowledge as a developer. I'm not very sure on how I can achieve that in the future, but so far, because I'm in a small company and I talk with the designer, I think it's something like very achievable. And if I hadn't gone to that master program, I don't think that I would be able to offer a lot of things. So I think it's important either for the developer or for the designer to be open minded and be happy to listen to the other person, because maybe he has something extra to offer.
Right. I agree that that's, a very important, those are very important people, to be communicating effectively. So I'm sure you will, throughout your research and your master's and throughout, this job and everything, I'm sure you'll figure out eventually how to, work through that and help people work together more effectively. So you'll have to keep us posted on how that's going. But I think that's exciting. I think that's a great goal to have. So I'm curious. I always like to ask whether there's something that our listeners or people maybe who don't know you very well might be surprised to hear. So we've been learning about you for about the last hour or so, but what's something that is either a little different? It can be work or school related or just personally or something. What's something that might surprise our listeners about you, or something that not many people know?
I think that if you don't know me as a person and you just hear me or listen to me from social media or from YouTube and stuff like that, maybe you would think that I'm a very sociable person. But the truth is that I'm not very sociable. I'm the typical developer that sometimes doesn't really like to talk a lot or to speak with other people. But this is something that I've been working on for the last, I guess, 2 years or so. I try to be more open and I try to connect with others. And I started doing that because I felt that the people that are more open and they communicate more with the others have more opportunities. So it doesn't have to do only with the knowledges that we have, but it has to do with how open we are to other things, and it also has to do with how much we can share about the things that we are doing. And I saw that the people that have that they like to talk and communicate and share their lives or stuff like that, they have more opportunities. And I wanted to have more opportunities for myself. And like as we've mentioned, I live in Greece, which is like which isn't a developed country in the field of programming or coding. So I wanted to do something for myself and maybe for the persons that are with me, and I wanted to grow up. And I thought that I could grow up if I was more sociable. So this is something that I'm still working to be more sociable and more open and sharing more stuff. And I guess that not many people knew that I'm actually quite shy, and sometimes I don't like to talk a lot. But yeah.
Well, you've definitely had me fooled between, just us chatting today and watching, some of your talks on YouTube and things like that. You definitely do a very good job of putting yourself out there and I know when you're on YouTube, you're just speaking to the camera, but you're speaking to a lot of people, really. So, and going to these conferences, I mean, it sounds like you're very effectively teaching yourself how to be more outgoing and kind of getting out of your comfort zone a little bit. So I know that's hard, but seems like you're doing quite a good job of it. So
Yeah, but I'm trying really, because I'm going to all those conferences as you mentioned, but sometimes I think it's easier to go to a conference and not knowing anyone, because when I don't know anyone, it's like, okay, I will do that and it doesn't really matter. I will just do it, and I'm doing it, and then I see that people like it. But from the other hand, like 2 or 3 months ago, I was asked at my own company, or the company that I work in, I mean, to do like a talk there. And at first I said, yes, I will do the talk, like no problem. But when it was the day to actually do it, because I knew everyone there, I didn't want to do it, and I didn't do that. So that's a failure, but yeah, okay.
Well, I mean, we all have those moments, and that's okay. I mean, you don't have to be successful and accomplish everything 100% of the time. So I think that's important for our listeners to hear as well. It's like, oh, well, that didn't work out, but other things do. And I know exactly what you mean. When you know the people, it can be so much scarier because, you sort of have more invested,
Yeah.
you're going to see them again every day, so I totally get that. That can be much scarier. No, but thanks for sharing that experience with us. I think it's important for people to hear those stories too. Like, it's not always perfectly successful, and and that's okay. You move on and you do the next thing. So you're finishing up. Well, you're in the process of this master's program. You have a job. You're doing all these cool things, and I know it's kind of hard to think about the future because you're so busy and having all this stuff going on. But what are your, at this point, ultimate goals for after the master's program, or just for the next few years? Do you have sort of some goals in mind for that timeline?
One of the goals that I have is to be better at the work that I currently have. And then the other goal that I have is to keep pushing myself on creating videos that have some educational purpose, and videos like tutorials, I mean, or coding stuff, because I think that they are very helpful to some others. And because YouTube is free, like FreeCodeCamp also, I think that this is very important. So my goal is to grow my YouTube channel and maybe connect with more people there. But the the reason that I really want to grow is because I believe that I have some things and I can offer things to people. And I don't like it when there are people that know stuff but they don't like to share it. So I want to be the opposite of it. I want everything that I learn, I want to be able to pass it to another person. And I think the YouTube platform is very good for that. So I think that I will invest my time on that thing.
I think that's so important what you just said about, being someone who knows things and sharing those things. So I agree. If you have knowledge, share it. Don't keep it to yourself. So I think that's, really great
Exactly.
that that's that's your philosophy on sharing information and putting it out there, sharing it on free platforms. That's really important. And I just have to make this little comment. That's totally meant to be because your name means free, right, Eleftheria? So,
Ah,
so it's meant to
yeah,
be that you freely share your information.
good to know that. Yeah, bravo.
Ευχαριστώ πολύ.
Oh,
I speak a little bit of Greek,
yeah,
it,
that's awesome.
it comes back sometimes. It was really when I was talking to Quincy about interviewing you. I was like, yeah, I mean, of course he knows who you are, and he was like, yes, a great idea, interview her. And I was like, oh, and she's Greek and she lives in Greece, so that's even more awesome for me. So, but anyway, yeah. So I think it's wonderful what you're doing. Sharing all your knowledge and going to conferences and sharing it with people there too. So keep up the great work. That's really wonderful.
Thank you so much.
So, is there anything else that you want to share with our listeners or with me before we wrap up today?
Just be, I would say to the listeners to just be eager to learn and always be like highly motivated and have a goal in their minds. I think that like having a goal will help them to achieve everything faster. So not just dropping things off very easily, but really pushing themselves. And another thing is that don't just expect things to happen from day to day. From day to day, it maybe takes some time to see something good, but eventually they will see something good and something great. So just always pushing yourself and strive to be better and not just mediocre, but like try to be the best that you can be.
That's wonderful advice. Thank you. That was the perfect closing. I couldn't have said it any better myself. So that's really great. Thank you so much for taking the time. Again, I know you've been traveling so much and have so much on your plate, but I really appreciate you taking this time to talk with me and share your story and what you do with our listeners. It's just really great to sort of meet you virtually and learn more about you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Of course. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for listening to the podcast today. If you enjoyed it, just go ahead and tell your friends about it so that more people can discover it. If you enjoyed the podcast today, just go ahead and leave us a great review wherever you listen to it. Thank you so much again, everybody, for listening, and have a beautiful day and happy coding.